All right, now that we have the supervisors, I'm gonna call this thing to order. We need to go a little quick today because there's other things that folks got to do. So buckle up. We're gonna drive it like we stole it. All right. So very first thing we got is the Pledge of Allegiance. And so if we can get everybody to stand up and keep the flag here, please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, y'all, thank you. And in being that we don't have a giant group today, I thought we'd go around the table and do some introductions because everybody don't know everybody. So we'll start with that big grande over here.
Good morning, Campbell Ingram, Executive Officer of the Delta Conservancy.
Karen Burr, Deputy Executive Officer.
And Nicole Rinke, Deputy Attorney General and Counsel to Delta Conservancy.
And Leo Winternitz, Board Member.
Michelle Perot, Board Member from Department of Finance.
Bruce Blodgett, Delta Protection Commission.
Marge Kohler, Yola Basin Foundation Liaison.
Steve Chappelle, Assistant Resource Conservation District Liaison Advisor.
Liliana Uding, Board Member.
Angie Shockey, I'm an environmental scientist here at the Conservancy. I'm the communications analyst here at the Conservancy.
Jessica Adel, I'm an administration supervisor and leaving board liaison. Nancy Vogel, my first meeting. I'm here representing the Secretary for Natural Resources. I work at the Resources Agency.
Mitch Mashburn, Solano County Supervisor and part of the board here.
Jenny, I'm the new fiscal and the board analysis. Excuse me, to prevent the Joaquin Conservancy.
Thank you.
Valerie Cook, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, Nutria Eradication Program Manager.
Lauren Damon, Ecological Restoration and Climate Adaptation Supervisor here at the Conservancy.
Rachel Whittington, Senior Gardener Scientist at the Delta Conservancy.
Maya Garrett, Ecological Community Program Analyst here at the Conservancy. Sarah Lesmeister, Ecological. Jessica Vaughn, the Attorney General.
Julie Spezia for Metropolitan Water District.
Martha was not with the Delta Conservancy. I'm a community project supervisor.
Rebecca Stone, Chief of Staff for Supervisor Patrick Hume, and formerly the Chief of Staff for Supervisor Natoli.
Hey, how about all them folks online?
Hi, Supervisor Diane Burgess from Contra Costa County. I don't know if I'm muted or not. Am I muted?
Oh, no, we got you.
Okay, it says you're muted, so I wasn't sure if I was or not, so.
I'm just going to go ahead and call people to make it easier. So there's Miller.
Oh, that's me.
Oh, no. Brenda Loss.
Good morning. I'm Brenda Laz. I'm the Administration Manager here at the Conservancy.
See last name Ratcliffe.
Morning, this is Donnie Ratcliffe. I'm the Field Supervisor of the Bay Delta Fish and Wildlife Office with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Great, thank you. Looks like first name Jenna.
Hi, I'm Jenna Casillas. I am a project coordinator with Ducks Unlimited, working with Aaron Will on the Stone Lakes Habitat and Restoration Project.
Abigail Fateman.
Hi, I'm Abigail Fateman. I'm the Executive Director of the East Contra Costa County Habitat Conservancy, and I've been working with the Delta Conservancy on the Knightson Wetland Restoration Project.
Great, thank you. Last name Martin.
That's Mitch. That's Chelsea.
Yeah.
Hi, Grant and Contract Analyst Chelsea Martinez with the Delta Conservancy.
Thanks, Chelsea. The ES was cut off on the screen. First name Teresa.
Hi, good morning. Teresa Geringer, Chief of Staff with Supervisor Diane Burgess.
Thank you. Hassan Hurte.
Hi, I'm Hassan Hurt. I'm the Grant and Contract Analyst with the Delta Conservancy.
Let's put that in there. Margaret Arambaru. Oh, Margaret, you might be muted.
Sorry, Margaret Arambaru, board member of Discover the Delta Foundation, an applicant before today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Barnhart. Last part of the last name's cut off. Barnhart.
Brian Barnhart.
Probably Barnhart, yes. I'm Brian Barnhart. I'm an attorney with DWR.
Rachel Lane.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Rachel Lane. I'm a drought program analyst at the Delta Conservancy.
See a first name Lisa.
Hi, Lisa Lamba. I'm with John Muir Land Trust. We're just getting to know the Delta.
And Linus Cal.
Hi, good morning. Linus Shukul. I'm the Executive Director for John Muir Land Trust and happy to be here this morning.
Great. I think we had one more person arrive just momentarily.
Hi, Todd Plain with
Todd. Looks like we're running.
Good morning.
Do we have a Veronica address?
Go ahead.
Okay, and then Grossi.
Oh, hi, it's Grossi. Yeah, I'm OT over here at Coast Building DCO. I'm just monitoring the meeting for Carrie Buckman.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else on the phone? All right, I think we made it.
All right, seeing none, we made it through that piece. All right, that comes, brings us to public comment.
Well, let's do a roll call for the board real quick.
Oh, all right.
Okay, Chair Mashburn,
I'm here.
Vice Chair Matsumoto, Supervisor Hume, absent, Supervisor Diane Burgess.
Here.
I didn't forget you today.
You did great.
Supervisor Ding is absent. Supervisor Provenza is absent so far. We expect him. Board Member Peralt. Board Member Vogel. Here. Welcome. Thanks. Board Member Udang. Here. Board Member Winternitz. Here. Thank you. Liaison Advisors, I have noted Todd with the U.S. Bureau of Rec, Todd Plain. I've noted Steve Chappelle is here, Marge Kohler and Bruce Blodgett. Is there any other liaison advisors that I missed? Okay, thank you.
All right, now we're gonna roll into public comment. So for the good of the order, is there any public comment on any item not on the agenda here today? Seeing none, is there any online? Anybody online have any comment?
None at the moment.
I don't see any there either. All right, that was quick and painless. Now we're up to board elections, sir.
Okay, well, I want to start by thanking Supervisor Mashburn and Vice Chair Sandy Matsumoto, who's not here today, for their service this past year. We greatly appreciate your leadership and working together. We've done some pretty amazing things this past year. So thank you very much for your service.
Absolutely.
By way of background, by statute, we're required to have our board elections for chair and vice chair annually. We always do that at the July meeting. Also by statute, the chair must be one of the 5 county supervisors. And it's our practice to have one of the public appointed members serve as the vice chair. So we actually allow chair and vice chair to serve for 2 consecutive years before we ask to rotate. And so, but we just recently staggered it so that there's overlap. You don't serve 2 concurrently together. So Chair Mashburn has served for 1 year and has expressed a willingness to serve a 2nd year. We greatly appreciate that. And Sandy Matsumoto has served 2 years. So I reached out to Leo Witternitz, who has graciously expressed interest in being the vice chair. You remember that, right?
It's in writing, Leo.
Marks on my back. Liliana is super new and we're out on maternity and we have a vacancy with the governor's appointee. So I reached out to Leo. So with that, I would ask you to call for nominations.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'll call for nominations.
This is Diane. I will nominate Chair Mashburn to serve another year, and I'm sorry I didn't get the other name of the person for vice chair.
Leo Winternitz.
That's exactly who I wanted. Does it have to be 2 different ones, or can it be one together?
No, that's fine. Together.
Okay.
Have a second.
All right, we're looking for a second.
Great.
We have a second. All right.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Liliana.
Thank you, Liliana.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oh, we got to do roll call.
Because we have
We got everybody online.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. I'm so sorry. Oh, Supervisor Patty has arrived.
Yeah.
I have. Sorry for the delay.
Love it. Thank you for coming.
Glad to be here. I apologize.
Okay, Chair Mashburn,
Aye.
Supervisor Burgess,
Yes.
Supervisor Patty,
Sure, whatever it was.
Supervisor Provenza is still absent.
Thank you, Tom.
Board Member
I trust
Pearl,
you all.
Should I mention that?
Board Member Vogel. Aye. Board Member Udang.
Aye.
Board Member Winternitz.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 ayes. The motion carries. Do we need to
So-
swear him in?
So I wanted to just make a quick note that procedurally, to become compliance with the Bagley-Keene Act, Supervisor Patty, we would need to have your location noticed on the agenda, and it was not. So we greatly appreciate you being here, but I think we would not count the vote to be
Gotcha.
in compliance. So
You can still vote, but we just won't count it towards the votes for achieving a result.
Oh,
So we can
okay.
still indicate your vote, but it won't
Great.
count towards the passage of an item.
So if we didn't have 6,
Right,
a quorum.
right, without him. But you can still participate.
Gotcha.
All right. Well,
So in
once
that
again-
case,
If
I
you
would.
need help getting set up so that you can do remotely, my staff can help you in the future.
Okay, thank you. I apologize if we missed something.
No worries.
All right. Well, once
All
again,
right.
thank you very much. And Leo, thank you for your willingness to serve these very important roles for the Conservancy.
Thanks for having us. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's fun. I like it. Y'all a good group of people. All right, rolling through like I promised. We're gonna roll to the consent calendar now. Any public comment on consent? Any there? Any online? No online either. All right, well, then I'd be looking for a motion on the consent.
Move to approve?
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion and a second. We gotta do roll call.
Can't type quicker. Chair Mashburn,
Aye.
Supervisor Burgess. Supervisor Patty,
Yes, if that matters, I guess.
Board Member Peralt. Board Member Vogel. Aye. Board Member Udang.
Aye.
Board Member Winternitz.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Motion carries.
All right, that was a good one. We'll roll right through to the executive officer's report.
Great. Thank you. Good morning again. First, I want to welcome Giante Ho. Giante goes by Jenny, and Jenny is our new contract and board analyst. So she's actually backfilling behind Jessica. So she will be one of your main points of contact for all actions with the board. And Giante has been with us, or I like Giante, but Jenny has been with us since June 14. And she's worked in accounting and analytics in China and in the United States, and was last with the fiscal unit of the Department of General Services, which is a huge boon to us to have someone with that kind of experience. So welcome, Jenny, and it's great to have you. All right, so moving on through the program update. Just want to quickly mention on the Delta Drought Response Pilot Program that we continue to evaluate the outcomes for the 61 grants. Site visits to verify the practices of water savings are ongoing and will continue through the close of the water year end of September of this year. UC Davis has begun installing the eddy covariance towers, which are the systems, micrometeorological systems that will be doing much finer measurement of the actual water savings on 6 sites. And then on agenda item 10, we'll be looking at an amendment to extend and add more funding to 6 contracts for the farmers that are willing to host those sites. So we'll get to that as we go. Please stop me at any time for questions. Delta Conservancy fiscal year budget. I'm very happy to say that we did quite well despite the budget shortfall. We had a $6 million allocation for wildfire prevention. So staff right now are actively engaging and sorting out how we can spend that funding to reduce water quality related impacts from wildfire in the Delta. We anticipate bringing a solicitation notice to the board for approval sometime likely at the January board meeting. There was a $7 million nature-based solutions allocation that was in the May revise that was pulled back, but we'll survive that. And fortunately, all of our baseline funding for facilities and operations was left intact. So we're doing pretty well. Moving on, Nutria eradication. Their most recent numbers are there, and Valerie Cook is here with the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and she's going to give us a much more detailed overview of the Nutria eradication program later on agenda item 13. Delta Science, fish-friendly farming is continuing. The second contract is now in place to implement a water quality improvement project that includes installing a tree break to reduce pesticide drift, and also more efficient water irrigation system to reduce amount of return flow. And the program's also finalizing the farm plans for each of the enrolled programs, and we'll start to do site visits over the next months. Moving on to the Delta Science Coordination. So the Restoration Forum, which we had the first one in February of last year here, we're starting to plan the next one. And if you remember, that is an opportunity to bring the community together with the practitioners and the agencies to talk about restoration objectives as well as opportunities and constraints. It was a great forum last time, and we're looking forward to the next one, which will likely be in later. Late fall. Sorry, I was confusing that with another update. So the Restoration Subcommittee of the Delta Plan Interagency Implementation Committee continues to meet, and their next meeting is on August 17th. I did want to highlight one of their agenda items is going to be an overview of a Delta funding needs effort. That was an effort that the Conservancy led to bring the agencies together to talk about the Delta and look across the next 10 years and think about what funding do we need across all sectors: restoration, climate, water quality, community, public access. Probably left something out there. Flood control. Thank you. I knew I left something out. Ultimately, we met for several weeks, and ultimately we came up with a $2.4 billion requirement need for the Delta over the next 10 years. The purpose really was to think, just to be able to inform any discussions now or in the future about bonds, funding that's required. Ultimately, we provided a spreadsheet that looked at projects, programs, and then Delta levy work that needs to be done. And we provided it to Secretary Crowfoot and his staff. They appreciated our doing the work on it. The last thing I'll say is it was incredibly valuable just for us who participated. I don't think it's ever been done before where we all came together to look across everything that's going on in the Delta from all the different sections, and then the focal point being the funding, but it just allowed us to get a better coordinated sense of what's happening. So we're going to continue that process at least twice a year and try to keep that list up to date so that it's always front and center on everybody's mind. Let's see, moving on. The Delta Interagency Invasive Species Coordination Team had its third quarterly meeting in August, and that team is working with the state level to develop a tour for legislatures and potentially have a Delta site for the legislators to visit to look at invasive species and those concerns in the Delta. They're currently planning the next symposium for invasive species, and that'll be in Delta December 2023 this year. And you can find information about past symposium on our website. And then Conservancy staff also worked with the DIS team to promote California Invasive Species Week, which was the first week in June.
Can I ask a question? Absolutely. The roundtable y'all was talking about for the bonds to talk about the future funding. Were there any of our electeds involved in that process? Were there any supervisors or anybody from any of the Delta counties involved? Other than just the state folks?
It was agency, federal folks, and most of the agency folks. I think in general, they have a pretty good sense of the breadth of projects and the programs. But no, there was not supervisors.
Okay. The reason I ask is because the supervisors are the folks that are connected to the public, which are the farmers, which are the landowners, which are the people that are directly affected. So it'd be good I think it'd be good to have that voice at the table when y'all are talking about that. We're also the ones who are going to be the face representing whether that bond is successful with the voters or not, in support or not in support. So, I'm just saying it'd be good to have some of your electeds there probably having a little bit of input.
I think that's absolutely spot on. And I think we were a little bit pressed for time, trying to get something out quickly.
Oh, I get you.
But I think in the future, I think we absolutely want to, we will.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I wanted to move on to media mentions. We had quite a few this since we last met. Stock and Record covered the public event at the Delta Aquatic Center for the planning project that we funded. I think we reported on that because I think that happened a couple days before our last board meeting. But it was just such a wonderful experience for us. Martha spoke at it, and just to hear the appreciation and the feedback from the people who will directly benefit from our investment was really powerful, and nice to see it in the press as well. Let's see, the reporter in Solano County, as well as a Contra Costa website news, covered the groundbreaking of the Pacific Flyway Center. I got to participate in that and got to be a speaker. And once again, we were just praised up and down for providing the funding for such a great facility that will have such great impact in that local area.
To that end, I've got a gold shovel with all kinds of signatures on it in the office.
I've got one in my office.
Oh, you got one?
I grabbed mine.
Oh, okay, all right. They wanted to make sure you got one. I got one for you.
Very proudly in the corner of my office.
All right.
And lastly, East Bay Times covered the board's approval of the web track mosaic project. Very significant at the May board meeting. So, moving on to board directives to staff, there were two. The first was the request to have a more in-depth overview of Nutria Eradication program. And as I mentioned, Valerie's here to do that later in the day. And then the board also asked that we provide contact information for what to do if you see a Nutria. And we put up on our website the telephone line and the invasive and the website. And then I've got we need to get more of these printed, but these are really great little Nutria pocket guides, and they actually show pictures to compare with muskrat and beaver and all the things that you can easily confuse a Nutria with. So please feel free to grab one. All right, so that concludes the program report. I'm going to turn it over to Jessica to do an overview of the budget.
Good morning again. The budget can be found agenda item 6.2. We have expenditures from July through May of this year. The June numbers are just coming in, and those will be year-end figures. Most of our expenditures, a lot of them hit now. I have a lot that have hit in June. A lot of the state agencies just don't finish out the billing until June, so those are not showing here right now. Most of line 24 grants and subventions is for the DRIP program. The Delta Drought Response Pilot Program, with final billing for that occurring in October. The only other item of that jumps out and may jump out because the variance is quite large is line 13, contracts and personal services. The variance there is the UCD contract for monitoring for the DRIP project. And again, there hasn't been much billing on that either. I do have a $600,000 bill that will be coming in June. So that variance is expected and is of no concern. It just hasn't been billed yet. Nothing jumps out at me. Is there any questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, we should have been calling out that that's page 14 on your agenda and on your package, just so we can.
Thank you.
Well, I didn't do that for. All right, so last on the report is just a correspondence update. So we did receive a communication from a member of the public regarding the web track mosaic project that we approved in the board meeting. That they asserted that the islands that are owned by Metropolitan Water District are an extension of the state and land held in the name of the state, and therefore members of the public have the right to access to fish on Bolden, Bacon, Holland, and Web Tract, all four of Metropolitan Islands. So they cited section 25 of the California Constitution, Article I of the California Constitution. So we've reached out to Met. We've been working with Met and their legal team to really try to identify what that's really all about, and make sure that we're consistent with whatever we need to be consistent with for moving forward with Web Tract and for Met's Islands. Just want to bring that to the board's attention. And with that, unless there's questions, that concludes the EO report.
Any questions?
I just have a quick one, Crumble. The listing of
budget options that you guys came up with, funding for the Delta, is that accessible? Are we able to see that, or is that an internal agency document?
It's certainly accessible. We haven't spread it widely. We provided to resource agency, but there's no reason that we couldn't share it.
Okay.
Is there, Nancy?
No.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
All right, any questions from the online folks?
I don't see
Seeing none. All right, that brings us to Ecosystem Restoration and Climate Adaptation Grant Program Update. Ms. Shaka.
Yes. Morning, everyone, board members. My name is Angie Shakya. I'm an environmental scientist here at the Delta Conservancy. Today I'll be presenting agenda item number 7, the Ecosystem Restoration and Climate Adaptation, or ERICA Grant Program Update. On the bottom of page 15, you'll see a breakdown of the funding sources that make up the ERICA Grant Program, along with their funding availability. These include Proposition 1, Climate Access and Resource, or CAR, and Nature-Based Solutions Wetland Restoration, or NBS. So moving on to page 16, for those following along, I'll start off with an update on the Nature-Based Solutions Wetland Restoration Funding Program. For some context, this program made available up to $36 million in funding with the goal of driving projects that restore, conserve, and protect landscapes and promote climate resilience for wetlands in the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta. At our last board meeting, the Wetland Mosaic Landscape on WebTrack project was approved, leaving $13.3 million for additional projects. And we have received other concept proposals and fully expect to fully allocate that funding by early 2024. So now to provide an update on active projects within the ERICA grant program. Since the last ERICA program update provided in May, 2 grant agreements have been executed. These include the Ulatis Creek Habitat Restoration Project, which you'll see on page 18, and the Marsh Creek Reservoir Restoration and Total Mercury Reduction Project on page 19. With these executed, all Proposition 1 Cycle 5 projects are now active. We have had 3 amendment requests since the last board meeting. So firstly, as approved earlier this morning on the consent calendar, the Nightson Wetland Restoration and Flood Protection Project requested a 12-month extension to their funding term. Additionally, the Grizzly Slough Floodplain Restoration Project at the Consumnes River Preserve was approved for their requested extension to their funding term. And lastly, the Stone Lakes Restoration Project has requested an amendment to their grant agreement, which would increase the project budget, and that will be discussed and brought up for your consideration during the presentation of agenda item number 8. There are no newly closed projects to report for this meeting. However, the Black Lock Restoration Phragmites Control Planning Study has completed their closeout and submitted the final report. So a project summary and photos are available on page 30 of your board packet. This project identified the best methods for controlling the invasive non-native plant species Phragmites, and that would inform future site-wide control measures at the Black Lock Restoration Site in the Sassoon Marsh. And the studies tested 5 different treatment methods involving mowing and the application of 2 herbicides. And the study found that all 5 treatment methods that were tested significantly reduced Phragmites growth compared to the control. These treatments all had minimal off-target impact. So as always, final reports for closed projects are available upon request at the contact information at the bottom of this agenda item. And that concludes the ERICA program update. So I'd be happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Any questions from the board?
Sure, no, but one comment. I appreciate the pictures.
Anybody else? Anybody online? All right, well, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. All right, next is consideration of an amendment to the budget ecosystem restoration and climate adaptation grant program agreement for the Stone Lakes Habitat Restoration Projects. Doc, tag, you're it.
Thank you. Good morning, board members. My name is Trevor Fox. I'm an environmental scientist here at the Conservancy. Today, I'll be presenting agenda item number 8.1, which is a request for consideration of an amendment to the Stone Lake Habitat Restoration Project. The staff report for this amendment can be found on page 35 of your board packet. The Stone Lakes Habitat Restoration Project 1713 is a planning project designed to restore approximately 257 acres of seasonal wetland and 39 acres of riparian seasonal wetland and enhance 20 acres of existing low-quality wetland on the Stone Lakes National Wildlife Refuge. This project was awarded $635,573 in Proposition 1 funds to the grantee, Ducks Unlimited, in 2019. And since then, the planning of the project is on track to be completed when the grant period expires on December 31st, 2023. Due to cost overruns related to securing the CEQA permits, the project now requires additional funds to pay for permitting work, as well as future staff costs for the remaining project period. Grantee is requesting an additional $38,273 to cover cost overruns for required permits and additional Ducks Unlimited staff time to complete and close out the Stone Lakes Habitat Restoration Plan. The amount requested will cover CEQA compliance, Delta Stewardship Council Delta Plan consistency completed by a subcontractor, Sacramento County's permitting process, a lake and stream bed alterations agreement from the Delta Department of Fish and Wildlife, from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and a wastewater discharge permit from the Regional Water Quality Control Board for $7,276. An additional personnel costs for the project completion, $3,616. To help reduce the financial ask, the grantee is also increasing their cost share by $5,000 to cover staff time during project completion. In summary, the grantee is requesting a budget increase of $38,273 and to increase their cost share by $5,000 for completion of the Stone Lakes project. Approval of this amendment will allow the awardee to complete project planning as proposed in the awarded project. However, the grantee has indicated that if the Delta Conservancy is unable to provide these funds, they will be unable to pay Sacramento County's invoices, and it will put the environmental permitting tasks at risk. If there are any questions or public comment, I'm happy to hear them at this time.
All right, any questions from the board? Any public comment in the room? I see none. How about online? Any of you folks online have any questions or comments?
I'm good.
No? Oh, I heard somebody. Oh, maybe not. All right, then I'd be looking for a motion.
Okay, in that case, I have some suggested language for the motion. Move that the board approve an amendment to the grant agreement P1-1713 with Ducks Unlimited to increase the budget by $38,273.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
I have a motion. I have a second.
Second.
I have a second. All right. Now we need to see the roll call.
Liliana, would you second again? I'm sorry. Trying to type in, right? Okay, Chair Mashburn.
Aye.
Supervisor Burgess.
Aye.
Supervisor Patty.
Yes.
Board Member Pearl. Aye. Board Member Vogel. Aye. Board Member Udang.
Aye.
Board Member Winternitz.
Yes.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ayes. The motion carries.
All right, thanks, Joe. Thanks, Doc. All right, next we're going to the Community Enhancement Program update. Ms. Garrett.
All right. Good morning, board members. My name is Maya Garrett, and I'm the Conservancy's Ecological and Community Program Analyst. I'm here to present Agenda Item 9, the Community Enhancement Program Update, which is on page 37 of your agenda packet. The Community Enhancement Program, or CEP, is funded through a $12 million allocation for Proposition 68, the California Drought, Water, Parks, Climate, Coastal Protection, Outdoor Access for All Act of 2018, and 2 general fund allocations of Climate Access and Resource, or CAR funds, totaling $11.4 million. The program funds projects related to recreation, tourism, historic and cultural preservation, environmental education, and community access. The program accepts proposals on an ongoing basis and is actively seeking proposals for the open solicitation. We are also aware of several potential projects currently working on their proposals. Currently, there is $4.8 million available in Proposition 68 funding and $470,000 available in CAR funds. However, we are recommending for consideration today awarding $450,000 in CAR funds and $62,000 in Proposition 68 funds. This report highlights the projects funded through the CEP. I'm happy to report we have 10 executed grants and 2 awarded projects. The projects are detailed on pages 38 of the agenda packet, but to provide a highlight, the 1883 Clarksburg Schoolhouse Implementation Project has begun construction on the schoolhouse. There are also 2 amendment requests for board consideration today. Agenda item 10.1, the Discover the Delta Education Center Planning Project, and agenda item 11.1, the Pacific Flyway Center Walk in the Marsh. The Discover the Delta Foundation has requested a cost increase. Details about the project can be found on page 44 of the agenda packet. And the Pacific Flyway Fund has requested an amendment for time and costs. Details about the proposal can be found on page 46 of your agenda packet. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public out there in public land?
See no hands raised.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. That brings us to item 10, which is consideration of a budget, to amendment of the budget of the Community Enhancement Program Agreement for Discover the Delta Education Center and Planning. You basically just explained to us.
That's me and
All right. Are there any questions from the public on this item? Or comments from the board? Seeing none. Can we ask for a motion on this?
Sure. There's the motion language. If I'm rest of it, that's fine.
But if you want to run through it, you can.
I'm fine to pass, but.
I told you I was going to drive this fast.
All right,
Let's talk about it. So.
All right, the motion language is move that the board approve an amendment to the grant agreement P6806 with the Discover the Delta Foundation to increase the budget by $61,522.
I'll move the item.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. We just need a roll call.
Yes, I do. I don't want to miss these. Okay, Chair Mashburn,
Aye.
Supervisor Burgess,
Aye.
Supervisor Patty,
Aye.
Board Member Pearl, Board Member Vogel,
Aye.
Board Member Udang,
Aye.
Board Member Winternitz.
Yes.
And we again have 7 ayes. We have a pattern here. The motion carries.
Look at that. All right. That brings us to 11, which is consideration of the amendment and budget term of Community Enhancement Program Agreement for the Pacific Flyway Center Walk in the Marsh.
Chair, if we could maybe go to 12 instead of 11. We have a bit of a glitch. We're waiting on an email for 11.
Oh, all right. Darn straight. We'll move it to 12. Consideration of an amendment to the budget for the term for select grant agreements for the 2023 Delta Drought Response Pilot Program.
Good morning.
Good morning.
If Veronica from the Pacific Flyway Fund is on the online, if you can check your email, that'd be awesome. Thank you. All right. Good morning, board members. My name is Martha Ozenoff, and I'm the Conservancy's Community Project Supervisor. And at the moment, we're looking at agenda item 12, which is I'm here to present for board consideration a recommendation to amend 6 selected grants under the 2023 Delta Drought Response Pilot Program. Correct. This item can be found on pages 38 to 50 of your agenda packet. Conservancy staff recommends that the board approve the amended budget by allocating $639,450 in DRIP funding that is currently remaining in the project budget, as well as extending the grant term to December 31st, 2026 for the 6 agreements detailed in the staff report. These amendments will allow the grantees to continue water saving practices on their field, supporting the UC Davis micrometeorological analysis of the DRIP program. Due to project specifics, of the 64 grants awarded in November 2022 by the Conservancy Board, the Conservancy was not able to enter into 3 grant agreements, leaving $504,675 in unallocated grant funds for water year 2022-23. Additionally, Conservancy staff identified $32,903 in unallocated grant funds from water year 2021-22 and $102,389 in savings from the UC Davis study. Together, this left $639,967 in unallocated funds. Conservancy staff consulted with the Department of Water Resources to discuss options for the remaining funds. And as a result, we propose using the unallocated funds to incentivize the grantees hosting of UC Davis research equipment on their property to continue their water saving practices for an additional 3 years through 3 water years through September 2026. Conservancy and UC Davis staff work directly with farmers to pick sites throughout the Delta, and based on available funds, we propose offering participating farmers up to $490 per acre annually to continue their water saving practices. 6 sites were identified, but one of those sites is no longer viable, as reflected in the table on page 48, identifying the 6th site as to be determined. Since the staff report was written, however, we've identified the 6th grantee as project ID DRIP 2365, High Land and Cattle. Our partners at UC Davis are in the process of working with them to determine the research acreage, so those numbers on the report, as well as the amended request amount, are still to be determined. They will not, however, go above 90 acres, leaving the collective amendment request at $639,450 or lower. Of note, this collective amount is $517 lower than the unallocated funds discussed earlier. This is due to the varying study acres per site identified by UC Davis. We did our best to maximize the grants without going over our available funds. Our staff recommends this amendment for board approval, noting that there's suggested motion language at the bottom of the agenda item for your consideration. But before we proceed, I'm happy to take comments or questions, and thank you for putting up with all those numbers.
Any questions from the board? You know, how about online? Anybody out there? No? Any public? Seeing none. I would be looking for a motion on this item. Oh, the language. I get ahead of myself.
I move the suggested motion language. That's
Martha, do you want to read the language real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, sorry about that. Checking my email. Move to approve amendments to increase the budget and extend grant terms to December 31st, 2026 of the 5 identified Delta Drought pilot program grant agreements, with a 6th to be determined, allocating the remaining $639,450 in DRIP funding per the table provided in the staff report.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second.
We need a roll call. Chair Mashburn.
Aye.
Supervisor Burgess.
Yes.
Supervisor Patty.
Aye.
Board Member Peralt. Board Member Vogel.
Aye.
Board Member Udang.
Aye.
And good at this. Board Member Winternitz.
Aye.
And again, we have 7 ayes. Motion carries.
All right. Are we back to 11? Or are we moving to 13?
I have an answer. Maybe I should talk to Nicole.
All right, let's move to 13 then.
All right, we're on to 13, which is the Nutria Eradication Project update. Ms. Cook.
Valerie, thanks for being here.
Would you like me to come to the table?
Sure.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
All right.
Thank you. He's probably.
Thank you all for having me today. Valerie Cook, so Nutria Eradication Program Manager with CDFW. It's been a few years since I've seen a handful of you. Nice to see you all again. Today I'm going to talk through a summary of the trends in our detections and take over the life of the project, give an update on our Delta operations, talk about some new tools in the toolbox, touch base on the status of our funding support, and then take questions. So the current update numbers, I think, are on page 13 of your packet. I am going to start by talking through those if you're interested in looking. That's the page that they're on. So those numbers are actually from about 2 weeks ago. As of yesterday, we're at 3,597 Nutria taken to date. I do want to talk about our trends over time. So first detection in 2017, ICS took off in 2018. 2019, we received initial funding from the state to actually stand up a dedicated program of folks. So 2020 was our first year of full-scale operations. So from 19 to 20, we were able to double the total number of the total amount of area that we were able to survey. We doubled the number of sites where we found and took Nutria, and we tripled the number of animals taken from the previous year. So big jumps, big gains in ground covered, area where we found Nutria, and the animals taken. In 2021, we further increased the area surveyed. We reduced the number of sites where we actually found and took nutria, and we saw roughly a 43% reduction in the number of nutria found and taken, with still that increasing level of effort. And so I think 2020 was over 1,200 animals. 2021 was just over 700 animals. And then in 2022, we saw about a 30% reduction in the number of sites where we were finding nutria. And then the number you see here, 579, looks like about a 20% reduction. I'm going to tell you a different story. In that year, we found and took 224 nutria off Mendota Wildlife Area in Fresno County. In all the previous years combined, we had taken a total of 12. So that was a new location that was put on the back burner in lieu of protect the Delta, you know, less water in Fresno, less of a concern. So if you account for, in all the past years, all the numbers taken in those areas, and then we exclude Fresno from the equation in that year, we saw, again, another about a 50% reduction. So going from 700 animals taken to about 350. So far in this year, we continue to see, this is the storyline here. We continue to see reductions in the number of sites where we're finding nutria, and we continue to see roughly 40 to 50% reductions annually in the numbers of nutria that we're actually finding and taking on the landscape with that sustained high level of effort across the project area. So one resource that I do want to note and make you aware of if you're not already, on the department's nutria webpage, wildlife.ca.gov/nutria, you will find an interactive time series heat map that shows year by year the locations and the densities of animals that we're taking. So you can really look across the life of the project or year by year to see what those trends are looking like across the landscape. Now I want to move on to talk about Delta operations, because that's the hot spot. That's the hot topic right now, right? Is I'm talking about big picture as a whole. Numbers are trending in the right direction. High level of effort, fewer number of locations where we're finding nutria, fewer numbers of nutria found and taken, but with all of the flooding and the high flow events over the last year, that was a big concern of ours, in that we knew we had animals in the San Joaquin River corridor in Stanislaus County. We knew we had animals being flooded and washed towards the Delta. So we made a strategic operational shift. We took all but one of our southern office staff and moved them to the Delta. We kept our one person on Mendota Wildlife Area, and we sent everybody else north for early detection, rapid response sort of blitz in the Delta, to hit it hard, to make sure that we either were covering our gaps, finding what we were missing, or that we were there to very quickly find animals that had washed downstream. So we did have, I want to kind of talk about the detection history in the Delta. First animals were found in Wallfall Slough, September 2018. I'm driving this thing like I stole it too, so if you need me to slow down.
Go ahead.
If
I like
you need
it.
to slow down, just say so. September 2018 is when we found the first animals in Wallfall Slough. Took a total of 110 animals out of that system. The last 3 were taken in 2021. No additional animals found or taken in that system since. In May of 2019, we had detections there at Old River. A carcass was found by a dog. We had a detection up near Rough and Ready Island. And then in February 2021, we had another detection in the vicinity of Stockton. I think that was French Camp Slough area. These were individual dispersing. They were individual animals that were seen on camera one time and never seen again. To us, that indicates these are subadults or adults that are dispersing and moving and looking for new territory and new animals, additional nutria. In October 2022 is when we had the detection on Sherman Island. Subsequently, we came in, we took 8 animals. I mean, we carpet bombed Sherman Island with cameras and traps. And I mean, there was a lot of activity out there for quite a while. We found and took 8 animals. We had some additional hits on camera. We knew there were at least a couple more animals out there that we were having trouble tracking down. And that's fairly consistent with what we've observed over the life of the project, where when we deplete a population, the remaining animals start to move. Moving, and they're looking for their other nutria. They're gregarious. They just want to find their family group or additional animals to breed with. So we knew we had some there, but we were having trouble sort of pinning them down. So that was October. This spring, we had the big operational shift that I talked about, big early detection, rapid response, temporary expansion further out into the Delta to make sure we did not miss anybody who moved into the Delta. In May of 2022, we also had our first field trials with the detector dogs. So actually, it's been a part of both of the grants that we had through the Delta Conservancy. We brought out the Chesapeake Bay Nutria Eradication Project's, a couple of their dog teams and their dog, the USDA's trainer, to come out and help us evaluate that tool in California, really to get a sense of its efficacy and applicability here in California. It's a fairly different environment here than what they're used to in the Chesapeake, but they saw really great success there. So we brought those teams out. We'd had COVID delays. They were originally supposed to be here in early 2020 and were days away from boarding a plane when we all got shut down. So it's been a delay, but we got them out here. Really interesting visit. It was really good to see them kind of adapt on the fly to how they needed to operate in our systems, how they needed to work with their handler, how their handler needed to work them a little bit differently, how we needed to adapt with how they alerted on sign or scat. It was a good experience. They did really well. We took them to sites where we had known infestations, where we had past infestations and we thought were cleared, and into other sites where we weren't sure what was going on and needed to explore. And we were really pleased with that visit. We did take them to Sherman Island. We got a hit in one pocket that we had not had a lot of effort in. They got a hit in that area. We came in and took 8 more nutria. So there we found our pocket thanks to the dogs. We have not had another detection on Sherman since. Also during that visit, we were running the dogs in the vicinity of Holland Tract and Dutch Slough, and they did get a hit that alerted us to that being a potential corridor through the Delta and out towards Sherman. So that was an interesting find for us and just sort of reinforcing some of the areas that we should be focusing on as we move forward. In June of 2022, we did got a detection of nutria out on Grizzly Island Wildlife Area. Since that time, we have found them in 2 distinct locations on the lower end of Grizzly Island. So lower part of Grizzly Island Wildlife Area, and then over in the Mud Slough area between Hammond Island and Simmons. So since that initial detection in June, we've now taken 33 animals, and we're out there actively surveying and trapping to find out what else is still there. We know we have more animals to remove, but we're on there and working on temporarily adding more positions out of our Fairfield office to be better positioned to make sure that we've got a full picture of what else might be there that we need to hurry up and eradicate before it establishes. So building on the conversation about the dogs, I'm going to transition to talking about adding tools to the toolbox, because the reality for us is, with numbers trending in the right direction, as numbers are depleted, all of these animals are going to get harder and harder to detect and harder for us to find and remove. So we're trying to make sure we have all the tools in the toolbox to help us move most efficiently and expeditiously. So I'm going to revisit the dog topic. We did the first round of field trials in May. We've got the second round of field trials happening late September, early October. We are working with them to execute a long-term contract for ongoing visits. And believe it or not, bringing those teams and handlers out from the Chesapeake and paying for travel is still much more cost efficient than trying to stand up a program in California. So we're taking that seasoned help, bringing them out for 3 to 4 weeks at a time. repeat visits several times over the year as we determine needed for verifying that we've cleared a site or exploring areas or making sure that we're just able to cover ground most efficiently. Judas Nutria. I've got a little bit of show and tell here, guys. We're excited about these little dudes. The Judas Nutria project is another that we have faced some challenges and obstacles, and you guys are welcome to pass these around if you're as curious as I am. We started work, so Nutria, as I mentioned, gregarious animals. All they want to do is find their buddies. They just want to be with their family group, their colony. So we're using that behavior to our advantage. We're collecting nutria, we're sterilizing them, and we're releasing them out on the landscape. Satellite telemetry tracking them, remote delivery of the data, looking for changes in behavior so that we can get an indication of, we think they have found somebody. Go focus efforts here. Our initial efforts with that project involved collars. Nutria don't have necks. It did not go well. We faced challenges with the collar design itself is a no-go, as you could see from these tags. We've found surprisingly that Nutria are not quite as sturdy as you would think they are for being such a successful invasive species. A lot of issues with pneumonia and capture myopathy resulting in heart damage and mortality. They're terrible and sensitive, apparently. We also dealt with some struggles with the actual technology itself and being able to utilize the appropriate electronics in such a small device. So we have moved on a few iterations now. These are tags that are actually affixed with mesh and epoxy, similar to what they do with pinnipeds. So rather than collars, we're going to tag these animals. We've got two different designs here that they've just developed for us. These just came in, and we're moving forward with trials to test these and figure out how close are we to finding the right tool. And then we cross our fingers that they stay alive to help us increase mortality. I know. Okay, last topic I want to talk about on the detection tools and the toolbox. This is kind of thinking outside the box and along the lines of using their behavior in that gregarious nature. We've actually just bought and started testing some audio devices. So think of like predator calls or people. So we have audio devices that play only at night that are nutria sounds, a couple of different nutria sounds, one of kind of a, not an alarm call, but an irritated call from a nutria in one of our traps. And the other is, don't ask me where this was, a video from online of somebody feeding their pet nutria corn that it was very, very enthusiastic about. So it sounds very delightful, I assume. So we're testing those right now to see if paired up with our camera stations, some scent and the sound of a nutria that's either unhappy or having a fantastic meal, we're gonna see if those will function as lures. We don't know what the result is gonna be, but we're trying it out, all tools in the toolbox. Lastly, I just want to touch base on funding. You know, originally we implemented the ICS. We were begging left and right. We were built solely on grant funding, limited term positions because the funding was not stable. In fiscal year 21 through the state budget, well, in 19, we got some initial funding. In 21, we got permanent positions for all of those grant funded limited term staff, because if you guys aren't aware, limited term positions, you've got 24 months. So you invest in your people and training them and get them very good at what they're doing. And then you tell them they can't work for you anymore. So we resolved that issue. We got permanent positions. We are now on our last grant with you guys, the Prop 1 funding that also is covering the dogs. That is, we've got it extended based on COVID delays, but we've depleted the personnel budget pretty well. In this new fiscal year budget, we did receive 3 additional years of ongoing funding from the state. We're going to get 3 years down the road, roughly 3 years down the road, and reevaluate how our operations looking, what do our needs look like, and move forward from there. So in summary, I just, want to reiterate, we've had these detections in the Delta. This is not a surprise. And to be honest with you, this is what we're in for. We are depleting all of these populations, all these established populations, but we will have dispersals. We will have new populations that pop up, and it's on us to find them quickly and remove them quickly. So all tools in the toolbox, but generally as a whole, numbers are trending in the right direction and we're making good progress. Yeah, I think summary wise, I'll just leave it there. We're adjusting our operations to focus on eradicating the Western population and kind of bringing that line back in. And then lastly, I just want to express gratitude for the support that the Delta Conservancy provided to us. I'm sitting here talking about trends, reducing numbers, progress. If we did not have the grants from the Delta Conservancy, we would be sitting here looking at numbers on that exponential growth curve rather than talking about progress in the other direction. So Delta Conservancy has been absolutely fundamental in that work and continues to be as we get dogs out on the ground to help us work more efficiently as our job just gets harder and harder. So, and with that, I think I would offer to answer any questions.
Sir?
Question. You might just want to take a few seconds to explain why we're going through all this. Tons of resource being dedicated to the eradication program. Why do we worry about Nutria?
They are detrimental in various facets of California's resources. So our wetlands, they will demolish our wetlands and convert our wetlands. So think about our Pacific Flyway, the habitat that we're striving to conserve for our wetland obligate species, our migratory birds. They will demolish those wetlands to degrade those soils, convert to open waters. Our Flyway will be nothing but open waters and destroyed habitat. They burrow. So talking about not only our flood protection levees, they can burrow, I want to say 50 feet or 50 meters. It's been a few years since I've had to give this presentation. They can burrow through our flood protection levees, cause road failures, cause collapses, but then also think about the water conveyance infrastructure in California. Also, our agriculture through the San Joaquin Valley, through the Central Valley, destroy our riverbanks, put sedimentation in those waterways that are critical for salmonid habitat. So it's a multifaceted, and we talk about the Delta. The Delta is top priority for us for protecting and keeping them out of there, or when we find that the line has been broken, finding them quickly, removing them quickly. Yeah, we're talking about habitat loss, levee failures, flood protection, water conveyance. Yep.
For a visual, you can take the picture behind you there and picture that as open water.
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially what has happened in Chesapeake Bay.
Yeah.
Supervisor Fergus has a hand up.
Oh, yes.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to say, when we approved the grant a few months ago, I was really interested in hearing about the dogs and how that was working out. And so your presentation is really appreciated. I also had a question on how the higher water levels were impacting. And so you answered that question. So just to be really fast, because I don't want to get Chair Mashburn mad at me, I'm just going to say thank you for the presentation. And this is exactly what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Nancy, you have a question?
Yeah, and at the risk of angering Chair Madison.
Hey, ask one myself. You go ahead.
Quick, Valerie, thank you. And I just want to ask whether you think complete eradication is a possibility, or should California prepare itself to always have some level of nutria detection effort?
Eradication is possible. That's the goal. That goal has not changed. In the Chesapeake Bay, they removed 14 or 15,000 animals over about a 20-year period. So I want to be clear, it is possible. We will accomplish this goal, but it is not a short-term goal. When we say, I mean, we're nickel and diming this budget. We're figuring this out as we go funding wise. But the reality is everybody wants to ask that question. Well, how long will it take? How many Nutria are there? The answer is we won't know until we're done. And we have to adapt as we go because, you know, I can sit here and talk about all this progress and depleting numbers, but when a new one pops up, it's early detection, rapid response. So it is possible, we will get it done, but it's important that we don't commit to a specific time frame just because we're learning as we go and we have to adapt as we go. And looking back, it's hindsight's 2020. We'll look back and tell the story, but the reality is it is going to be an intense and a relatively long-term effort to remove them all and then be confident that we removed them all.
Thank you.
All right, now I got one quick question. It may not be quick.
Make it quick.
So, education and outreach, right? Y'all got hundreds of employees, but I can tell you in about 3 months, Striper's gonna start running and there's gonna be thousands of fishermen. And then a couple months after that, there's gonna be a couple thousand, half a million duck hunters out there all over California. Are we reaching out to Ducks Unlimited and the various organizations to educate these folks about this and the impacts that they're facing and get them involved? Because half of them, you know, they go out there and see a muskrat or a beaver or a nutria, they don't know the difference, right? And they need to. And
we did a lot of early outreach and education, but I'll be frank, we're due for more, especially with this Delta find and over in this area. And I think, quite honestly, I think Steve has been really helpful with the Sassoon RCDs and the outreach to the duck clubs over there, but we have more work to do. Originally, it was Grasslands was the hot spot, and those duck clubs and those hunters, you know, they got the full gamut, but we're due to make the cycle out in the Delta now.
yeah, they do need to know because they're gonna think there's a problem that you aren't gonna have a muskrat or a beaver left anywhere in the Delta. You need to let them know. Just saying. All right.
I see Supervisor Patty has a question.
Yes, I do. Thank you. And by the way, great presentation. I love you know, in this world, we live in acronyms and such, but Judas Nutria is the best I've ever heard. Not even an acronym, it's just great. So excellent job. My question is kind of along the lines with Mitch, but are you getting enough support from the state? Is there, if you had more robust funding, I know it always comes down to dollars. If we want to get to total eradication and a maintenance program for that matter, should this be prioritized in any capacity or exasperated to a higher level?
I will say that we have had really great support from the state so far. We went to them in this past budget cycle and put forward, this is what we need to maintain our operations at this level. And we did receive what we asked for. So at this point, this is our best estimate of what we need to maintain our full scale operations. I think that it was wise of them to move forward on a 3-year cycle to give us the opportunity to reevaluate down the road, because I think that also gives us the opportunity to evaluate additional needs in the context of ongoing work with the dogs. The Delta Conservancy is carrying the dog work for the next couple of years. So if we're finding that that's a critical tool we have to maintain in the toolbox, which I think is likely, then we will have the opportunity to go back and demonstrate why that is and what the need is.
Excellent.
So long
Thank
story
you.
short, I think the state has been very supportive.
Fantastic. Good to hear. Thank you.
Awesome. Any more questions from the room or anybody online? I don't see any. Thank you very much, man, for the presentation. All right. Are we going backwards? Now we're going to 11. Okay, so consideration of the amendment to the budget term, Community Enhancement Program Agreement for Pacific Flyway Center and Walk in the Marsh.
This is gonna be super exciting after Nutria. Okay, well, good morning. Happy to be back. As a reminder, I'm Martha Ozenoff. I'm the Conservancy's Community Project Supervisor, and I am pleased to present for board consideration a recommendation to amend climate access and resource funding for project ID CAR 01, the Pacific Flyway Center Walk in the Marsh project. This item can be found on pages 46 and 47 of your agenda packet. Conservancy staff recommends that the board approve an amendment to increase the project budget by up to $450,000 and to extend the grant term by 2 years. The requested amendment amount represents a 30% increase of the total grant award and will be used to complete the Walk in the Marsh Boardwalk Trail. Originally estimated at $757,000, the grantee obtained an updated estimate in 2023 that came in at an untenable $12.7 million. The grantee adjusted their plans to change the material for most of the boardwalk to a more reasonably priced decomposed granite trail. The new estimate for the trail is $1.6 million, which far exceeds the remaining CAR funds. And to that end, the grantee is requesting $450,000 to help bridge the costs and will use private donor funds to pay the remaining amount. The grantee also requests a term extension to March 15th, 2027 due to delays from weather-related events, permitting, and the as-noted material availability. Lastly, to the drama of the morning, regarding CEQA, the applicant has confirmed that the city of Fairfield, as the lead agency, considered the change and the prior CEQA findings and does not believe any further analysis or change in findings is required relative to the change in design because DG is already permitted for use elsewhere in the project and alignment of the path is not changing from what was previously considered. Our staff recommends this amendment for board approval, noting that there's suggested motion language at the bottom of the agenda item for your consideration. But before I proceed, I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public or online? Seeing none, ask for a motion on this item or language and then a motion. I'll get it. It just takes a minute. I gotta think over it a couple times.
I'm happy to read the language.
Yes, please do.
Move that the board approve an amendment to increase the budget by $450,000 and extend the grant term to March 15th, 2027 to Pacific Flyway Fund for climate access and resource funding for the Pacific Flyway Center Walk in the Marsh.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion. Can I get a second? I
I'll
have a
second that.
We got seconds just coming out everywhere.
So I have the motion by Udang and the second by Burgess. Chair Mashburn,
Aye.
Supervisor Burgess,
Aye.
Supervisor Patty,
Aye.
Board Member Peralt, Board Member Vogel,
Aye.
Board Member Udang,
Aye.
and Board Member Witternitz.
Aye.
Okay, last roll call, 7 ayes, motion carries.
All right. Thank you very much, man, for the presentation. That brings us to the Delta Conservancy Implementation Plan status update.
Right. Well, good morning, Chair Mashburn, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here today. Really sorry that I wasn't able to be with you at the last meeting. I had a training for my EEO role that only gets offered once a year, and I was disappointed not to do the site visit and be out with all of you. But glad to be here this morning. And today I am presenting the update to the implementation plan. So as you remember, well, actually I should kind of go backwards even further. A year or so ago, you all or your predecessors created a strategic plan for the Conservancy. The implementation plan comes off of that so that we all can make sure that our staff is working towards the goals of that strategic plan in a timely fashion. I presented that to you in January. If you would believe it has been 6 months since then, which I'm having a hard time believing. We talked about it then. We have been working hard and staff has been doing an awesome job since then. And today I'm here really to bring you the update on that progress that's been made to assure you that we are on track for accomplishment, which we are. I do want to, just like I did in January, I really want to reassure the board that you have an amazing staff working for you. They are dedicated, they are hardworking, they are committed, and I think that you should be really proud and thankful of the hard work that they're putting in, and I'm constantly impressed with what they're doing. So just want to point that out. I also want to just kind of maybe to that note, I'm going to give you some highlights of the work that they've been doing, but also just want to give you this really great 2023 at a glance, which is in your board packet. So if you go to item 14, attachment 2, which is page 52, at the very top of that, staff put together a quick summary, and I think this is impressive. And I do want to point out that this summary is an addition to all of the kind of unseen and unreportable work that they're doing. So this is a highlight, but there's a lot more going on. So in 2023, so the last 6 months, they have awarded 3 projects. They have completed 70 new grant and contract agreements that have all been executed. They have done 250 invoices. 8 amendments have been processed and 3 projects have been closed out. And again, that's 6 months. And in addition to all the other, just kind of countless work that we don't see every day. So really want to highlight that great work. I'm also going to flag just a few things from this report, and then I will certainly take questions and, allow any input that folks want to give. But I did want to call attention to the Raptor program, which is the Resource Agency Project Tracking System. As we talked about in January, we had a fairly robust conversation about Raptor. And I think this system is really important because what it does mean for the Natural Resources Agency is that the agency will be able to go to data from all of their departments as well as their conservancies statewide and be able to give high-level reporting data. So, we sit here in the board meeting and we approve grants and we know that these great things are happening, but this system will allow the resources agency to show what the collective work is and for us to understand how our work fits into that collective goal. So getting that system up and running is really important. Our staff has the pleasure of being first adopters or guinea pigs, whichever term you prefer there. But they've learned the system. They've provided a lot of feedback to the resources agency. And at this point, they, from my understanding, have uploaded all of the current Conservancy grants and maybe past grants into the system and are helping provide feedback to the resources agency to get it live and moving. So really proud of them for taking that on. It's not been easy work. Also want to point out the grant awards. So $6.6 million of the $7.7 million that's available for the Climate, Community Access, and Natural Resource Protection Funds, which is the CAR program, have been awarded. So the staff brought all of those recommendations to you. You all approved them, and those have gone into contract or close to, if not there. Also, 21 million of the 36 million in nature-based solution funds have also been awarded. And I really want to point that one out because I think that nature-based solutions program has been really important. I think we are starting to really understand the importance of subsidence as well as the Delta's role in carbon sequestration and what a huge impact it has on the state. Campbell has been, a diehard champion of that for at least a decade now and has been, trying to get attention to that. And I feel like this nature-based solutions funding has not only given him the ability to really raise that to a higher level of understanding, but also to get some actual projects on the ground that are going to highlight how that carbon sequestration can come into practice. So really excited about the visibility that that's brought for the Conservancy in this really important issue. Also, the team has been doing a great job of operationalizing the collaboration. I think, as most of you know, there are 3 Delta agencies that sit in concert with each other, and we don't always work together. And I think the staffs of all of those agencies, as well as ours, have been working to operationalize that. So it becomes more of a knee-jerk reaction that we're all at the table instead of each kind of going there individually. So I'm excited to see the progress on that. Legislative outreach has also been great. Campbell and I have met with almost all of the core legislators that have their jurisdictions in the Delta, as well as many of the county supervisors. And we've been out kind of making those rounds and letting folks know how important the work of the Conservancy is. Our DEI work has kicked off and is reaching fuller implementation. And I think most of you are aware, I think Campbell let folks know that I am actually I'm temporarily working as the executive officer for the San Joaquin River Conservancy. So when I get back in about a month now.
1 month.
1 month, when I come back, and amazingly, it's less contentious in the Delta than it is in the San Joaquin Valley, if you believe that. We're gonna be really putting that DEI effort into kind of full bore and full gear at that point. And then finally, I just want to give a shout out to the admin team. They have been just knocking it out of the park. This is some of that unsung work, where really like they are meeting, you know, fire drills and corrective action plans and all of these deadlines that they have to do. And they've been doing just a stellar job of like meeting all of those and exceeding their goals. Okay, so that's what I wanted to highlight. I do want to just really quickly, for sake of transparency, hit on the things that we are less on track on. But I don't think any of these are really high priorities, and they're not things that anyone should have alarm about. But I do want to highlight them. One of them is the conservation easement policy. So we do have a goal this year of getting that out. That is on my plate, and that's something that we consciously chose to kind of push back to fall, given the other duties that I've got on my plate right now. I know Campbell and I are interested in doing kind of more of a robust legislative outreach than we have been doing even, and so that will kick in this fall, and hopefully not in the legislative cycle, so that people have a little more bandwidth to hear us out. The Delta signs, I think those have been moving a little bit slower than we had expected. 3 of those have been installed and 8 more sites have been identified. Those are really due to the idea of working across jurisdictions, as well as meeting all of the rules of those jurisdictions. And finally, administratively, our shared drive is taking a little longer than we had anticipated, but that is happening. Okay, so finally, I just want to highlight a couple of things that I think Campbell has already highlighted about things that will be coming this fall. And mostly I want to highlight these so that folks can get these on their calendars and get engaged in the work that we're doing. So as Campbell mentioned, there'll be a Delta Invasive Species Symposium in December. We really hope that you send your staff or yourselves or whoever's the relevant folks from your agency to engage in that. It is on track and it's going to be really a fascinating event. So we hope that everyone will be there. Hope has been working really hard on the Delta Week. So Delta Week will be happening in September.
It's the last week of September.
Thank you. Last week of September. And she is working hard to get some cleanup set up. So we're hoping that you, your staffs, your families, whoever else is able to come out and participate in those cleanups, should be really great events. And finally, as Campbell mentioned earlier, the Delta Drought Response Program report is in process of being put together. We had a robust conversation about that in January. I think all of us are really anxious to gain insight on what's been happening with that program and what we can really learn about where to put those investments on water efficiency to make sure that we're spending it effectively and guide future investments. So that report will be coming out sometime later this year, early next. So keep your eyes out for that because we are looking forward to that. And then Campbell already highlighted, but I will highlight again that we're now also putting together a new program, which is the Forestry and Fire Funding Program, which is $6 million that we hope to release the program guidelines in January. Our first response was fire in the Delta. What are we going to do? But Campbell's been doing a lot of outreach, as has staff. We see 2 really big opportunities among a lot of others, which one of them, as Campbell mentioned, is to kind of look just outside the Delta and maybe a little upstream and see where we might be able to help water quality by removing some fuels prior to fire, as well as there's a number of tribal efforts. I'm not sure I understand.
It is complex.
Yeah, it's very complex. There's also a lot of tribal efforts going around forestry and fuels work. So I'm hoping to, maybe be able to support that, and you all will see guidelines very soon. So that is my quick overview. Any questions or thoughts on that?
Any questions from the board or the public in the room or online? I got 2 things real quick.
Yeah.
First is, thank you, because it's refreshing to sit at a meeting and hear somebody talk about not just all the good, but to fall on our sword and talk about some of the other stuff, right? Because that just never happens. I sit in a lot of these meetings, everybody will tell you, oh, this is great, and that's great. Nobody tells you, well, this is what we got to work on. So thank you for that. And then the second piece is I'd like to thank staff because, again, it's one thing to sit in this meeting and go through this agenda packet, and read all that. And it's another to go out to the site and to see it. And when you all have these events out at the site, when we have our meetings out at the site, which has changed. I mean, when I first started here, we weren't doing that as much. Now it's like a regular thing. And it makes a difference when you are making this effort as an elected or as a board member to get to go out and see those sites and those successes and see what we got to work on and what we don't have to work on is great. It gives us the ability to speak to it when we're out with other folks. And it gives us a greater understanding and a greater level of satisfaction that what we're doing here really matters. So I'm appreciative of that from the staff. And then lastly, on that flood piece that you were talking about, give me a holler because, you know, we flow right down into the Delta from out there in Solano County. We had the LNU fire come down and burn everything up. So there's a lot of bad runoff coming down into the Delta there. I would also recommend you reach out to RCRC here in Sacramento. And it's the Rural Counties Coalition, and talk to them because they're doing a whole bunch of stuff around exactly what you're talking about, which is the runoff from all our timberlands that come down into the Sacramento River that feeds into the Delta. So I would talk to them as well on that. All right. Enough said.
I just want to really appreciate Karen. As she mentioned, she's pulling double duty here, but this was something she wanted to continue to do and provide this update to the board. So really appreciate your doing that. Doing a great job.
Thank you, man. Yes, thank you. All right, that brings us to the EcoRestore update. Ms. Biggs.
Charlotte's online.
Oh, she's online. Okay.
I'm online. Good morning. So hi, I'm Charlotte Biggs with DWR. I'm just going to provide a quick update on DWR's habitat and multi-benefit projects overall. And then I was going to highlight just a few projects that have celebrated some recent accomplishments and milestones. So overall, DWR has about 28,000 restored acres that are either completed or under construction right now. And so if we include projects that are either in planning or in permitting, that brings us to about 36,000 acres. And that's a mix of tidal, floodplain, and riparian restoration that the state has either, directly funded or implemented in the Delta. So that includes the Sassoon Marsh and Yolo Bypass area. So our initial goal for EcoRestore was actually 30,000 acres to accelerate and move forward. So we're right there at achieving that original goal and really well poised to continue this momentum. So we're very excited about that. We've had a lot of challenges along the way and continue to face challenges, but I think, when we zoom out and look at the numbers, we've actually progressed a lot of acres in the Delta. And so I just wanted to mention, Campbell highlighted the DPIC restoration subcommittee meeting that will be later this month, or actually it's in August. My colleague Steve Rothard and I will be giving a deeper dive on the status and showing some maps and things. So if people are interested in that, we'll be kind of digging into that status, but I just wanted to share that briefly here. And then I was going to highlight just a couple of projects where we've met some recent milestones. So the first one is Lookout Slough, which is our largest multi-benefit project that's currently under construction. The site is in Solano County, just south of Dixon. It's a multi-benefit project both for flood improvements and providing over 3,000 acres of tidal habitat. So the good news there is that we actually have completed the new setback levee. And so that work is done. We are now focusing on the interior site where we are grading the tidal channels. We are also about to complete work that will be preparing for the breaches. So we actually have 9 breaches that are planned to be completed next year. Each breach requires a cofferdam. So we're driving steel piles into the actually into Shag Slough. So we'll be prepping the last 4 breaches here starting in a couple weeks from now until October. Some other just recent accomplishments on the site, just for your awareness, we worked with the local reclamation district to increase their funding so that they can take on long-term maintenance of the new levee, which was definitely a concern in the area. And we also completed an emergency response plan for the area. So just some things for your situational awareness. Lastly, on that project, we recently recirculated a portion of our CEQA document related to recreation. And so we got comments and we will be responding to those comments in the final EIR section that we hope will be out maybe in a month or so, depending on how we can wrap that effort up. The second effort I wanted to highlight for you all is Little Egbert Tract, which is a proposed project in Solano County, just north of Rio Vista. So this is a newer project. It's a proposed multi-benefit project that will help improve flood protection in the area and provide around 3,000 acres of habitat restoration. We're looking at potentially floodplain and associated tidal habitat in this area. And the other exciting thing about this project is that we're also planning to include public access and recreation. We won't have as stringent of requirements on the site, so we're able to consider that. So we just initiated CEQA. DWR is the lead agency, and over the last 45 days or so, we held 3 public comment meetings, 2 virtual and 1 in person in Rio Vista, to get comments just on scoping. We anticipate the draft EIR for this project, Little Egbert Tract project, to be out next summer. So about a year of work just to get the draft EIR out. So just wanted to share that with you all. More to come on that. Very exciting opportunity there. And then the last project I wanted to highlight is Prospect Island, which is a tidal habitat restoration project that's been has been around for a long time. And I'm happy to share that in the last month, we received our Delta Stewardship Council Delta Plan Consistency, which was the last approval or permit that we needed for this project to move to construction. So we are now working with the local reclamation district just to finalize design and go out to bid for construction, which would begin next year. So that's exciting. And then one other thing I just wanted to mention, it's kind of adjacent to restoration, but just for your situational awareness, DWR has been working really closely with CDFW and Solano County to look at public access within the cash slough area of the Delta and looking at opportunities there to expand public access. We've held a number of public meetings, and I think hopefully later at the end of August or early September, we're going to be putting out a public draft of an action plan that looks at how we can expand public access within the area. So we looked at all existing access and all projects that are in planning and tried to identify opportunities for hopefully expanding access, which includes the Little Egbert Tract proposed project. So really exciting things I just wanted to share, and happy to take any questions on those or any other projects that are under the EcoRestore umbrella.
Sir.
Charlotte, 1990s when I first started working on Prospect, I'm really glad to see that it's coming to an end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about McCormick Williamson Tract. Not too long ago, I had the opportunity to kayak into the tract after the levee failed. And I thought it was just beautiful. I thought it was gorgeous. Is it done?
Yeah, really good question. So this last winter, as you all know, was a lot of action. And so McCormick Williamson Tract has restricted height levees, and they were overtopped in the last winter. So the site is actually flooded. So of course, we've had a long time in planning of a restoration project out on the site. But we are considering keeping it basically as it is and doing some cleanup work on the breaches. That will still require some permits and some CEQA cleanup and compliance. But that is definitely what we are considering doing. That'll result in some cost savings to the states if we're able to do that. So I'm glad to hear you thought it looked beautiful, Leo. I think we're also doing some investigative work right now just to make sure we're on the same page with our partners on the project so that we can continue. But that is the vision.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board or the public in the room? Yes, ma'am.
Rachel Whittington, Senior Environmental Scientist at the Conservancy. I wanted to note the Deep Restoration Subcommittee that both Charlotte and Campbell have mentioned. There was a typo in the Executive Officer's report. It was my typo. The meeting is on August 16th, not August 17th, and that's going to be set in a hybrid format. So you can attend on Zoom or you can attend in person at the CNRA headquarters on Peace Street, yourself and your staffs. And I think.
All right, thank you. Anybody online? I don't see any, Charlotte. Thank you very much for the presentation.
You. Anytime.
All right, that brings us to the Delta Stewardship Council update.
We have Brandon.
Thanks, everyone. Brandon Chapin, Legislative and Policy Advisor at the Council. A quick update. So some covered actions to report on. Charlotte already mentioned one of them. So Prospect Island passed its review and appeal period on June 29th. The other one, on July 8th, the Solano Resource Conservation District submitted their certification for the Lattice Creek Habitat Restoration Project. And the project seeks to use a variety of different methods or native plants to restore 20 acres of riparian habitat near Lattice Creek. So that 30-day review period ends on August 7th. For a couple other things on the science side to cover, we have two really big recruitments that are currently out. We just submitted or released the recruitment for a new Delta lead scientist. This is in partnership with the USGS. It's a joint position that we share with them. We're seeking nationally recognized scientists to become the next lead scientist responsible for providing unbiased scientific expertise to the Council Science Program and the Delta science community at large. Applications are, there's an application deadline of August 25th. Those will be given first priority, but it is an ongoing recruitment as it goes, with the expectation that the lead scientist position will begin summer 2024. We're very sad to see Dr. Larson leave, but her term ends in June 2024. The other vacancy to have you all aware of is the Delta Independent Science Board also has a vacancy that we just announced. So right now seeking a prominent scientist of expertise in fish ecology. So for both of these, please spread the word to anyone that you might know that might be interested in either the lead scientist or the Independent Science Board position. The Science Board position closes on August 18th with the expectation for that to start in January. And then the last thing, just really quick, we have our council meeting tomorrow. We're meeting in Ileton at Peter's Steakhouse. Very busy agenda. So we're kicking off the Delta Plan 5-year review. That's one of the things that statutorily we have to do every 5 years is review the Delta Plan and make recommendations for any possible changes. We'll have an update on the Delta Conveyance project, which I believe you all have on your agenda as well. An update on the Council's Delta Adapts climate change study, which is going to include an overview of the adaptation scenarios that the staff have been working on with stakeholders. The science program and the Department of Water Resources will present on efforts to communicate science information in the Delta and also to schools. So we're really excited about that as well. And then the last is the council will have an action item to consider the adoption of minor revisions to the proposed rulemaking for the Delta Levy investment strategy. And these are changes to respond to comments we received from the Office of Administrative Law. Some minor changes that were requested. With that, happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board or the public or any of y'all online? I don't see any. All right. That was quick and painless. Thank you. All right. That brings us to the Delta Protection Commission update, sir.
Absolutely appreciate it. A couple things. One of them, I'm going to start with your own project, the 1883 Clarksburg Schoolhouse. I happened to have an opportunity to go to a breakfast meeting out in Clarksburg on Friday, and we did a tour of the construction afterwards. So it was great to see all that work being done. They are moving fast and they are tearing things apart and putting it all back together again. So it's going to be outstanding when it's finished. But again, a great opportunity. One other thing, I'll get to that in a minute, but Delta Protection Commission, we met last week as always. We always meet about a week before you. And we met last Thursday in Rio Vista. The next one will be September 21st, and that will be in Stockton area. So that'll be our next meeting. The Delta Protection Advisory Committee meets on August 1st. It'll be at 5:30 at the Herringer Estates Winery. So if anybody's interested, go visit with us. Come visit us at a winery. On National Heritage Area Advisory Committee is August 3rd. This will be one of the meeting locations. So thank you, Campbell and company, for hosting us. I'll be traveling somewhere through Southern California on a phone on that call. But yeah, that meeting is coming up. They're moving and they have a lot of stuff to move forward. So I got to pull my glasses off so I can actually see it. They're going to be working on draft sections, the introductory chapter, the interpretation chapter, the resource inventory, the heritage development chapter, tourism objectives and strategies chapters. So a lot of things moving. Now, the National Heritage Area needs to move through the system here. The goal is to get the plan to us, Delta Protection Commission, for approval at our November meeting. then that'll start the comment period. We'll put it out for public comment at that period, at that point, with the objective of getting it to the National Park Service by March of 2024. So that's moving things forward. Signs were mentioned, and yeah, it's an interesting process. I've been new to this, and it's amazing how long it takes to put up a sign. And then worse yet, so that day.
And how fast it takes to take one down.
There you go. She already knows this. Diane knows this, but so that day, when I was out at the schoolhouse in Clarksburg, I came back up Jefferson Boulevard, was on a staff call, a Zoom call with one of my staff, and I stopped the truck, got out of the truck, showed her the sign. 2 hours later, it was on the ground. Got clipped by a car. So, yeah, that one is down. The Jefferson sign is down. If you came in the 80 corridor, I hope you noticed right before you got to the Fazio Wildlife Area, there's the National Heritage Area sign up there. But Franklin, there's a sign, and rumor has it Monday we'll have another sign going up on Twin Cities. They originally were starting to install Twin Cities, and they hit lines, some power lines that were running underground that they didn't know were there. So luckily nobody was hurt. Everything's fine. They're repairing the wires, but there's a lot more signs to be going up throughout the Delta, and it's good to see at least a little progress, however long it's taking. So, happy to take any questions.
Questions from the board or the public? I don't see any at the moment. All right, go, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So the National Heritage Area, I know it's been a while. It's the Sin Marsh and Benicia as well. Is that correct? It's greater than just the legal delta.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. It's got a different map.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. That brings us to the Delta Conveyance update.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Mashburn and members of the board for having me. I'm Carrie Buckman. I'm the Environmental Program Manager for Delta Conveyance. I have a few updates for today. The first is just, I think, continued from past meetings. We are continuing to work on the final environmental impact report. We received about 7,300 individual comments on the draft EIR. And that's not comment letters. It's that we went through each comment letter and subdivided them into individual comments. And we're responding to each of those individual comments, as well as developing common responses to comments that we've received multiple times so people can see them in a common format. So we are working to have that final EIR at the end of this year. It is going to include the full text of the draft EIR with revisions as necessary, as well as all of those individual and common comment responses. The Corps is working to finalize the environmental impact statement under NEPA, and they're scheduled to follow us a bit. So they're looking, I think, at early 2024. The other thing I wanted to update people on is the soil investigation work that we've been undertaking. So I think people remember, I've talked about this before at past meetings, that we completed an initial study in mitigated negative declaration to complete some soil investigation work in the Delta. That was originally in 2020. And we've been doing that work since then. It includes both soil borings and cone penetration tests, which are a little easier way to do some geotechnical investigation. So as part of that effort, we have been working since 2020. We've completed about 79 borings and 59 cone penetration tests. I wanted to highlight, I know that there is some confusion at this point in the process. People sometimes think that if we're out doing work in the field, that means that the project is moving forward. And I really wanted to highlight that that is not the purpose of this process. This soil investigation is to provide information to support the planning process. It is not a sign that we have moved forward the project in any way. So this is informing the final EIR that we'll be publishing at the end of the year. And the other piece I wanted to highlight related to geotech is that I know that we put out quite a bit of public notification around work that we were doing on Highway 160 in May and June. We recognized that that had a potential to really be a problem for people in the neighborhood, that it was really an inconvenience. And so I really wanted to highlight here that that work is complete so that people don't think there is additional work coming on that front. We do have some anticipated work coming in summer and fall this year, about 20 borings and 14 cone penetration tests. So that is the end of the geotechnical update. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Any questions from the board or the public? Seeing none. Anybody online? See anybody? Okay. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate the update.
Thank you.
That brings us to the potential agenda items.
Great. So the last page of your 60 of 60 just has a list of potential items for the October meeting. I want to note that board member ethics training will be coming due, so we'll get some notices out about that. We do anticipate hopefully awarding the majority, or I was saying that looking at Lauren, that could go to January, but we will have nature-based solutions projects for consideration, both in October and January likely. We do anticipate some additional amendments coming through. We have several sort of in process that will be coming to you. And then the last bullet, or the second last bullet, is a draft solicitation notice for the wildfire prevention funding. A little optimistic, that might not happen till January, but we wanted to put it there just in case. And then October, for our last meeting, our new plan, which is to do a site visit in May and in October. We'll try to schedule that out, and we're looking at it possibly being a water-based tour. That presents some liability issues, but I did want to talk with you and Supervisor Hume about opportunities there. So.
Absolutely. Let me know. We'll get the boats out. We go out there and see all them projects that the DWR is working on out there in our Solano Delta.
So that is it. Unless there's any questions or anything else that the board would like to see covered in the next meeting, we're open to suggestions.
Anybody online? No. Anybody from the public? No. All right. You're good to go, brother. That brings us to public comment, and we haven't had very much. I don't see any going on. Anybody out there in internet land?
Nope.
Nope. All right. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you all very much.